Welcome to the Crunch McDabbles Show. I'm your host, Crunch McDabbles. This is the only show where we break down the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules. In today's show, we break down armor proficiencies by class, and we take a look at armor specialization. It pains me to say this, but we had a little teeny tiny error right there. This is actually two different groups, which is pretty great because it means this armor proficiency is a little more complex and more robust than we originally thought. And it's also an excuse to make another chart, which I always love. So let's just go over the whole thing again right from the beginning. Armor proficiencies from the bottom. Down here at the bottom, we have the casters. This is the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Oracle, Psychic, Sorcerer, Summoner, Witch, and Wizard. They start off as trained. They advance to Expert at level 13, and that's the end of it. Plain, simple, not good. All right, then we have the first of our martial classes, the first tier for our martials. This is the Alchemist, Barbarian, Gunslinger, Rogue, and Swashbuckler. They're just like the caster group with one difference. Up here at level 19, they advance to Master Proficiency in their armor. Then we have the second tier of martials. This is the Inventor, Ranger, the Thaumaturge, and the Summoner's Eidolon. They are like the previous group, except they advance to Expert Proficiency at level 11 instead of level 13. Then we have the third tier of martials. This is only the Fighter and the Magus in this one. It's like the previous group, but they advance to Master Proficiency 2 levels earlier, here at level 17 instead of level 19. Then, at the top, we have the 2 elite armor class progressions. Starting with the Champion, they advance to Expert way up at level 7, and then Master at level 13, and Legendary at level 17. And then at the top, the highest defense possible, at least from the proficiency standpoint, the Monk. The Monk, they start out at Expert right at first level, but then they don't advance to Master until way up there at 13th level. That's like 12 levels of being Expert. And then they go to Legendary at level 17, pretty much the same as the Champion from that point onward. So just looking this new chart over, if we're just soaking this all in, we're soaking it in. Here is this middle group that I missed, the in-betweener, tweener martial group. I think it's interesting that they decided to break the martials into 3 different groups. What you end up with, though, looking at all these different tiers, there are just a lot of different groups with a small benefit from going from one tier to the next. What you end up with is a nice, tangible benefit to being in any higher tier. You get a +2 to your armor class, and a +2 to your armor class is an amazing benefit. Now, whether you get that benefit for just a level or 2, or whether you don't get that benefit until much later in the leveling process, it doesn't matter. A +2 is great, but it's also not a deal breaker either. So I like how they set this up. Another interesting thing about this chart is that it's a pyramid. There are less classes in each tier as you move up. Look at this. You can see it almost makes a straight line here just looking at the classes written out. And the numbers bear this out. More than half the classes are down here in these first 2 groups, in the lowest 2 armor class progressions. Then 90% of the classes are in the first 4 non-elite groups. And none of those, they're never more than 2 away from each other at any point in the leveling process. What this means is higher armor class proficiencies are the exception in Pathfinder, not the rule. But defense isn't all about armor class and proficiency. Heavier armors can provide damage mitigation if you have the right training. This comes from the unique ability called armor specialization. Armor specialization only works for medium or heavy armors, and there are only a couple of classes that can get this, literally a couple. The Fighter and the Inventor, they get that at level 11, and the Champion can get this at level 7. A couple of archetypes can get this too. The Sentinel can get this by way of a feat at level 6, and a full-on Hell Knight, not the Armiger, the full Hell Knight, they get this with the Dedication feat at level 6. That is, if they survive the fight against a devil in single combat. And you know how that can go.
No! Please, no! No! No!
Here is a chart of damages blocked. I like the chain armor specialization here. It reduces higher amounts of damage, and it blocks critical damage, which is more universal. All creatures will critically hit you. And when they do, that is precisely when blocking some damage, even a small amount, that might be the difference between dying to and being on your feet. Unfortunately, there is only a medium version of chain armor with chainmail. Next is composite armor. Composite armor will give you resistance to piercing damage. I like piercing resistance because it covers arrows and crossbow bolts and a lot of bite attacks. For medium armor, this would be the scale mail, and for heavy armor, it would be split mail. Everybody loves split mail because it's heavy armor and it's cheap enough to afford it first level. Also, the inventor's armor is composite armor, so this is the resistance you're going to get once you hit level 11 when you're an inventor. And next on the list is leather armor. This is just hide armor here, the medium version. Hide armor is pretty great armor though. If you have armor specialization, it will give you resistance to bludgeoning damage. And finally, plate armor will give you slashing resistance. There are heavy and medium versions of this one, and this is probably what most champions are going to be wearing. Now, these numbers on composite, leather, and plate armor are just a little bit smaller than the critical resistance from chainmail. This doesn't bother me though. You're still getting some damage mitigation with composite, leather, and plate armor, and basically for no cost. You're just blocking some damage just for waking up and putting your armor on. Now, if you are a class that doesn't get armor specialization, and that would be, well, just about everybody, do not fret. Crunch McDabbles has you covered. You can always head to the Grand Bazaar in Absalon, head over to the Unscathed Blade, and pick up a reinforced surcoat armor adjustment. An armor adjustment is something you buy that you can just add to your armor or shield. You can only have one adjustment on an item at a time, and they can be added or removed in just 10 minutes using a repair kit. Now, I would assume when you buy this item, the shopkeeper would add it to your equipment for no charge, just kind of like at the cell phone store when you hand the guy your cell phone and give him a dumb look and he just does it for you. That's good business for them. How great is the reinforced surcoat? How great art thou? You can throw this thing over any medium or heavy armor. It only costs 2 gold pieces. It's a level 0 item, so anybody can add this to their starting gear. It gives between 2 and 5 physical resistance against critical hits. And as we said, that's the best because it kicks in exactly when you need it to kick in so that you don't die. And the best part about this is it's a surcoat, so you look really pro in this thing, like a bona fide killer out there on the battlefield. So, in conclusion, defense, it's just like a lot of things in this game. It might not be one big defensive ability that makes you survivable. Nay, it might be a lot of little things that you stack together like little building blocks. Blocking 2 points of damage on a critical hit could be the difference between up or down on the battlefield, and as long as you still have some hit points, even just those 2 hit points, you're going to get those 3 precious actions at the start of your turn, and you just never know what you might be capable of with those actions. And that is it. Survive Galarian with some good armor, and maybe, just maybe, some armor specialization, or a reinforced surcoat if you can't get it from your class, or you're too afraid to fight a devil in single combat.